Disclaimer. The following is intended for mature audiences. The Yes Sir podcast is intended for entertainment purposes only. The opinions, beliefs, and statements expressed by the hosts and guests are purely satirical and should not be taken seriously. We are a bunch of idiots that make stupid jokes, and anything that resembles a real opinion or belief should be disregarded. We do not endorse, promote, or condone any particular beliefs or opinions represented on the show. For the love of God, use your head, critically think, and make your own opinions. By watching or listening to our podcast, you acknowledge and agree to the satirical nature of the content. If you have any concerns or questions about the material presented, please feel free to reach out to us for clarification, especially Legacy. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the first and quite possibly only episode of Yes Sir, the only show where we debate about pointless topics and pretend it's a podcast for about an hour. With me, as always, is my co-host, Legacy Prime. How you doing, Legacy?
Doing good, man. I'm ready to hash it out.
Hash it out, yeah. So, we thought this would be stupid and funny, so we're gonna go ahead and just do it. The topic for discussion today is werewolves versus vampires. Now, obviously, there is one correct answer, being that of vampires. But
what he's talking about.
But our buddy here wants to, discuss it out and hash it out. So, you know what? You're welcome to change my mind. I'm taking Steven Crowder's bit. It's mine now. I'm Steven Crowder. Give me your conservative money! Anyway. So, why do you believe that furries are better than stand-up citizens?
The biggest reason I think that you, at least in our previous discussion, we were thinking, I think you miss out on the element that the whole principle of how this debate arose, whether it be from historical instances with...
If you read in the Battle of World War I, werewolves were clearly fighting against the Nazis.
No.
I mean, historical.
Well, I want to say I haven't done my research enough, but I want to say it's...
We came to debate without a research.
And on this particular instance of what I'm about to bring up, werewolves and vampires, I think, stem from Halloween. As far as I am aware, there's a lot of different... All right, where's your evidence that this one? I thought that were...
Sure, let me give you a historical lesson real quick, an actual one. The original vampire was obviously Dracula, Count Dracula, which was directly inspired by Vlad the Impaler, who was real. He killed so many Ottomans. He killed so many f***ing people that they just started thinking he was a demon, and basically that's where the myth of Dracula came from. Basically, like this bloodthirsty monstrosity that glided through oceans of blood and killed a ton of people. That's where Dracula came from. Vlad the Impaler. That's real. He didn't go, you know what, after killing all these people, I could carry a lantern around and ask for candy at front doors. Yes! That is not what happened. How old is that? What?
How old is Vlad the Impaler?
How old?
Like when it, what time?
You like the time period? I can Google it if you'd like. Welcome to the most informative show by the most uninformed people.
That's a good idea right there. The most informative show by the most uninformed people. That means you can trust us. We're a source you can trust.
1448 was when he was born. 1448, yes. And he died in 1476 or 77. Once you go back that far, it starts getting a little iffy on details because, they didn't have the internet back then.
And historians.
Bunch of savages.
Again, I think with the modern age... People equate werewolves and vampires, the whole topic with, the spooky season.
Okay,
not to say that that's what it's about, but in terms of where a lot of let's storylines and books and everything have come from, I think sort of comes from that similar sense of idea and what they utilize it for now.
You know what? Let's start this debate on a correct objective standpoint, right?
Yeah.
Are you team werewolf or vampire?
Werewolf. Cool.
Okay. Good. We got the groundwork. Why? We're going for the why. We don't need to go for a... I prepared a speech that I wrote in 5th grade. Here we go. Since the dawn of time... It has to be 2,000 words. Since the dawn of time... No. Why do you believe that werewolves are inherently better?
Okay. Perhaps my standpoint would not necessarily be to say that they are inherently better, so much as to say, to your point, that you instantly thought vampires...
why do you like werewolves better?
Oh, that's because, I don't know, they're more beastly, savage.
Okay, so you like...
That resonates with my Saiyan spirit.
Okay, so you like big, hairy, beastly monsters pouncing on things. Okay, yeah, definitely not...
He's taking it out of context, don't listen to him.
So that's just it? Just you like how beastly they are?
The premise of just how, I don't know, their traits, their skills are just more savage. It resonates with my warrior spirit.
All right, well then I will explain why vampires are inherently better in every way.
What?
So first, if we're going back from a base standpoint, vampires by inherent nature are magical. From every perspective of every medium, from being able to shapeshift into multiple different types of forms, being able to cloak itself into darkness, from sustaining off of just blood itself as a food source, which is not an inherently natural thing whatsoever, to the ability to fly just without needing to change form. And the enchantment, like the ability to gaze into someone's eyes and steal their heart. Every single aspect of a magic that the vampire has is enough to deal with a werewolf in any sort of meaningful aspect.
And you're talking in a broad generalization, right?
Yes.
Like there's a lot of different mediums. And
we'll get into like everything. But just overall in general, also likability. Vampires are charming and werewolves are big monsters. We live with a animal. So I know what that's like.
But okay, so then let me ask you this: Why is there even the werewolf vampire debate based on what you just said? The generalization.
Is not what we're not
no, I know, but like if you're making it sound as if it's already clear cut that werewolves aren't.
Yes, because any category you'd use to compare the two, one is inherently better than the other. And
but then why is there this feud? And why is it that?
Because people like it. It's like ninjas and vampires, which we talked about before. It's literally just a pop culture thing. But there are also two monster beasts that transform. That's basically it. That's like asking, wait, why is Frieza and Megatron fighting in this death battle? I don't understand. It's like they're galactic tyrants. Oh, it's the same thing. They're monstrous creatures that kill people,
right,
and transform half the time.
And yet, in most instances that we ever see, you can probably statistically say in a lot of instances, because, as like you said, vampires are more magical, they have an advantage on werewolves. But
so, are we going into the combat discussion first?
I would say so. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest principle of instead of saying which
fair.
ones.
That's the biggest argument and points of contention. So that's probably the best place to start, all things considered.
Rather than saying which one's better. Or
that's still recording. Okay, cool.
Which one's better or just which one you like better? I think the basic, because again, we were saying, which one is gonna win?
You think we're gonna film a podcast with I like this better because I like it? That doesn't go anywhere. You can't discuss that. What do I talk you out of the things you like? What kind of gaslighting podcast is? Welcome to the Gaslight Podcast. That's always what it's been called. Setting it off the table.
See, a werewolf, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at the dog. She's big. And if I ever release the MRE video, you'll also see the dog again. Okay, get out of here. Anyway, back to the discussion.
What I wanted to convey to you is that I feel like you are skipping over the abilities.
Wait, me? Hold on. We're about combat. Wait, what do you...
Yeah,
don't deflect on me. What is this, some blood sport? Well, you said, stop trying to win brownie points. It's the internet.
Oh, not winning brownie points.
And I know my audience. They'll turn on me. Max and Green will both turn on me. And Bart will encourage it.
I feel like, again, the way they have to... This idea of this combat, right? The two of them feuding. But to what you saying that vampires inherently are more powerful based on what they are capable of. I feel like you go over...
What I'm saying is they have magic.
Yeah.
Which means in a combat sense, they just win by sheer advantage.
Magic.
That's like saying, I am a master of the blade.
As a wise...
Okay, I have a pistol.
As a wise clone trooper once said, experience outranks everything. They have the capabilities, they have the powers, but are they fighters? They're not inherently fighters. They are overlords that just do that literally kill because they can, and they most likely cannot be stopped by most other opponents.
You know why that doesn't work?
Why?
If the firepower or the power difference is so vastly gapped, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much skill and technique. It doesn't matter how much skill and technique a SEAL Team 6 member has if a nuke drops on him.
But that's not that drastic of a comparison. The werewolves and vampires both have. Let's go stat for stat. Let's go stat for stat. Ready?
Stat for stat, sure.
Both creatures have greatly enhanced strength.
Mm-hmm.
Right. werewolves and vampires both have insanely increased speed. Vampires probably a little bit more so in terms of quick like movement to movement, but
I still think I'd give the point to werewolf.
Really?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, like, all the enhanced things that even if you just take into consideration most mediums, vampires have enhanced speed, but at base they were still human. Whereas a werewolf naturally has, like, wolf speed. So, like, unless you're, like Dio from JoJo's Adventure, like, just teleporting behind people, posing and like, vampires are just, like, faster than humans. And werewolves are faster than wolves, so wolves are pretty goddamn fast. Right. So it's like, speed advantage, I definitely give that to the werewolves. Strength advantage, probably also. Actually, that probably goes.
It's tough because like there's not really a care.
That's the problem with werewolves there too, because it's like, oh yeah, a human in theory would beat the a wolf if they just started flailing. Like, a werewolf is a humanoid wolf, so it's like, do they get the wolf strength in proportion? Do they just get stronger? I'd probably give it to werewolf, but also, again, it doesn't matter because there's magic.
Have you seen Invincible? I'm asking. Have you seen it? I'm trying to give you a comparison that I can compare it to.
Looks into the camera like Jim from The Office. Have I seen Invincible? Oh, actually, did the new season start up, or is this a trick question?
It's soon. The new season's soon.
Of course I watched season 1. What do you mean?
I'm just making sure. But so you know how
bro,
you know how Viltrumites can literally just rip each other in half, right?
Yeah.
I think in terms of like what I've seen from a lot of examples from werewolves versus vampires, and a lot of instances, I think their strength can be comparable because at least it's been shown. Like I've seen vampires just stabbing straight through werewolves, and I've seen werewolves rip vampires in half.
This man is using anime logic to say a werewolf is as strong as Superman.
No. I was just giving the example like how strong Viltrumites are. They can just rip each other in half. It's just crazy to think about.
Yeah, and werewolves aren't ripping Viltrumites in half.
Not to that. It's just about that they can do it. And I'm comparing the fact that vampires and werewolves might be able to do the same.
You've unintentionally made a really good point. Because I've seen a werewolf rip people apart. Yes, obviously. Vampires, yeah, they're empowered people, basically. They're undead versions of people, so yeah, that makes sense. But to say they have the strength, like, they're equal to a Viltrumite?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
That's like saying, I shot you, that means I have the power of the U.S. government during Nagasaki. It's like, no, that's wrong. You're wrong.
That's not what I'm saying.
They can rip people in half. You don't need an example.
But it's the fact that they can do it to each other. So if they can do the exact same things to each other, that means that
means their strength is higher than their durability.
No. Well, but I'm more like just that their strength is more equal
to each other.
Yeah, that's all I was trying to get at.
Oh, you're talking about vampires and werewolves.
Yes, that their strength is equal because of what they can do to each other.
All right, so physically. They're equal in strength, and vampires have magic, whereas werewolves don't. So
endurance is the next one. So
endurance don't matter if they can be ripped in half.
Survivability in combat. What keeps you like if it's a death battle, right? And one person's left at 1 HP, and the other person's left at 0. They're dead. Like, what healing factors and abilities do werewolves and vampires have that coincide to survive?
They both kind of have a same healing factor. Well,
vampires definitely have a crazier healing factor as long as they are not killed.
Well, now the problem just relies in location on that. We can't really do anything about that. Because a werewolf will consistently have a regeneration factor. If you're fighting in the woods, yeah, the vampire's going to lose. If you're in goddamn Metropolis, where there's people walking around left or right, you have infinite health packs right there. You just slurp them up. Which that also brings in the night and day. But also that's like, I mean, if you want to go into like crippling weaknesses, we can go into that next. But like, I'm just saying, like, when it comes to regeneration, that's literally a factor of environment more than anything. And because vampires can literally just kind of like slink away, they can just survive.
Yeah, but they are inherently limited to half the day in most instances, unless you're Twilight.
I mean, that depends on the time of year. Is it summer? Is it winter? Do you have longer days, shorter days? I mean...
But, like, you get what I mean? And while werewolves are not hindered by a time of day to have their healing factor...
That's probably a good time to transition to crippling weaknesses, because werewolves don't control half the time. In most cases, when a werewolf transforms, he is a a monstrous beast that doesn't control himself. They lose their mind and go insane. Unless you're watching the Twilight series, which I know you're a big fan of.
I would say
they usually just lose their mind and go insane.
But that I feel like that goes back more to older thoughts of what a werewolf in terms of a literal monster, more of because if they're just monsters, that's one thing, right? But we're talking about the fact that media and people have portrayed werewolves and vampires to fight against one. Right? Am I wrong? They have portrayed them to fight against each other as if they're clans, they have tribes, and that they are not.
This whole man's career, James.
We're talking about werewolves that have control.
Well, plot twist. Werewolves aren't real.
They're a vampire.
Yeah. So when you go, well, the media's portraying, yeah, because they're not real.
But that's what we're going
This isn't a Michael Jackson R. Kelly case. You can't be like, the media's distorting it. They're not real.
Not the media like that. Just.
You know, everyone in media says they do this, but actually in my headcanon they do this.
It's not
like that's not how that works.
But you get what I'm saying though. Like the
majority of media, they lose their minds. That's the point I'm making. We have to go majorities because we can go. Well, what about
is that
X,
majorities
Y, and Z?
now?
I'm not going to bust out. Well, actually, in Hellsing, Alucard decided he was going to release every one of his 2 million souls. Like, I'm not going to do that. Vampires can't do that. That's just Alucard from that one show. You trying to use the minority of like, oh yeah, some can control their which they can, yeah, but like a majority don't. Just like the majority of vampires go up in flames in the sun.
So okay, that's what I'm saying. If we set it to whether they are just monsters rather than the fact that they have been shown to, again, like in modern times, people write books, movies, shows about the fact that werewolves and vampires don't like each other. But if we go back earlier in time, and they're just monsters.
Time exactly.
They're just monsters rather than people portraying like to have a premise. If it's just monsters, if we're just going off of the fact that they're just monsters, I would agree with you that vampires just inherently are better than werewolves. They are stronger and it would win more accurately again, right?
So your argument hinges on if a werewolf could control itself.
No, again, not that they could control themselves. More like I'm talking about the werewolves where they already have control, and there's just fused.
A werewolf that can control himself. No, a werewolf that already has control. That's what I said. No, but actually.
But that's why I'm separating those two instances. I agree with you if they were just in terms of a literal just monster to monster. I would agree with vampires being stronger.
So what are you trying to say is what I'm asking.
More, again, I'm talking about the premise of when they're how it's described how werewolves and vampires fight each other. Like, they're clans, tribes, whatever.
No. This is a 1v1. We're not bringing in clan tactics.
No, but not clan tactics. Just about the reason why they don't like each other. And why they're fighting. And how they would win in a fight under these...
You are the guy who watches a death battle and goes, wait, why are these two characters fighting to the death? It's a spat over a beach blanket. Mario shouldn't be killing Sonic over that. What are you, stupid? No, we don't need the reason of why they're debating. That's literally just what the people have done with werewolves versus vampires is akin to shipping. It's like, oh, these are monsters. We're gonna have them fight each other. Like, you gotta pick a side. That's literally the same as every ship ever. It's like, oh, we're Team Jacob. No, we're Team Bella. It's literally just shipping, but violence.
I think that werewolves would win in terms of their fighting capabilities. They are literal hunters. They are trained for fighting. Vampires, yes, they may have more magical abilities. They don't, in most instances, I would say, like, they're not fighters. They just kill whatever they can.
Let me ask you something real quick. So, in this specific scenario, the werewolves have clear mind, clear thought, and control over their form, right?
Yeah.
They can think, correct?
Yeah.
So they are open and susceptible to mind manipulation magic that vampires have, correct?
I believe werewolves have resistance to mind manipulating magic. I believe.
Why?
I believe. That's just how they... as far as I'm aware.
Let's check.
Are you about to check the D&D books?
We're going to check the D&D books.
But that's not the majority.
This is the best example. Sorry, Legacy, there is no resistances to mind in D&D.
And D&D. But in the premises of werewolf versus vampire lore, there's a reason it's not that simple. Because
this man said D&D, the game that's been around since the 80s, doesn't count for consistent lore. But I did a quick Google check, and that counts. That counts.
No, because again, if it was just that simple, do you really think they would ever have a feud? The werewolves would just lose.
No. That's the point I was making.
Werewolves would just lose if they had.
Why are the two like compared? Because people said so. It's literally akin to shipping. It's like, why are these two unlikely pairs getting together? Because people said so. They wanted it. That's literally the same. What are the two most popular like supernatural beings? Vampires and werewolves. Because people like the big hairy crazy vile men and the sexy seducing blood sucking demon. That's literally why. More of the conversation is the verse is not like, why are they fighting in the first place? If you came to a debate being like, why must we fight? I'm gonna kick your Gandhi ass to the street. I'm gonna apartheid you.
What I'm saying is there would be no fight. The werewolves would just inherently lose if it was just that simple that vampires could mind control them.
Yes. So tell me, why do werewolves stand a chance? We're on the combat thing. We can shift to another thing if you'd like after, but we're still in the combat.
But how do you know all vampires have the ability to mind control?
Well, they have magic in general.
Yeah, but magic in general does not guarantee that they can mind control. Besides, werewolves inherently, because of their beastly nature, have more resistance to magic.
That is not true.
Then how is it true that they just have all magical abilities?
Senna, isn't it easier to control and manipulate animals than people? Don't look at Jaden. He won't give you the answer I'm looking for. That's how I know, right there. That dog being like, I don't know what's going on. I just heard my name. That's what a werewolf be like.
No.
If he has his mind, he still has the beastly nature that you are very insistent on pushing forward.
So you're gonna bring a little ball to throw for the werewolf?
You're gonna bring up the thing I said. What a low blow.
No, you're gonna bring a tennis ball to a werewolf fight and just throw the ball and hope the dog plays with it?
You keep very doubling down on the beastly nature. What do you think a beast is?
But not all beasts are easy to control. That's why you couldn't just simply control it that easily with mind control.
No, but
it's
you
not
can manipulate
genjutsu.
it. That's the point. You can train a wolf. You can train a animal and a beast.
But it's a werewolf. It's not just a beast.
No, it has a much clearer thought and mind, so it's able to be more easily manipulated. You can manipulate people just as easy as animals. They're just different methods.
Trying to do both at the same time?
A werewolf, I feel it would be easier. If it's a clear mind one that you're saying, yeah. Because people are technically easier to manipulate than wolves. Because you can make a good argument to a person to change their mind. You have to do something to appeal to an animal. Because she doesn't understand words. You can't, convince her. You just have to pull out a treat. And she's like, what? I'll do whatever you want. If you've got no more points, we can move on to a different one.
I can't agree with that one. I feel like that's the whole... the whole...
You don't have to agree. It's just, you just have to admit defeat. Anyway, we can move on to another point. So, where do we go after combat, then? What's another strong suit for the werewolves? Because you're losing the debate, so it's only proper etiquette that I give you. I don't know. I'm sure the internet will agree with you just to spite me specifically.
Oh, well, yeah. Now you're trying to put it in their heads so that they agree.
Because I know
you're trying to use reverse logic.
The people that watch and react to my content are Green, Bard, and Max, and all three of them will be like, "You suck." Anyway, so what point you want to bring up now? Because we know that werewolves indefinitely and obviously lose to werewolves in combat, so what else is there?
Well, I think that was the whole point. That was the whole debate. Who would win in a fight?
Well, no. It's the whole debate originally centered on, are you team werewolf or team vampire? Which that doesn't necessarily mean
especially we should bring that up, how this came about. I did one of my daily snap streaks, and there was a filter for, are you team werewolf or team vampire? And that's how this all started.
I'm so proud about it.
I'm not proud, it's just funny.
Yeah, and I just told you that vampires are inherently better in every way. And you're like, no!
It's just not true, I'm sorry.
But it is.
How?
You're not debating how they
are not inherently better. You said because they have magic, they're better.
That's why we're transitioning. If they aren't better in combat, which we just proved that vampires are better in combat, how are they better in a different sense?
If you're a werewolf, you're not going to be... Vampires are feared more than werewolves. Meaning they are more of a problem than werewolves. Meaning werewolves...
Wait, what does more of a problem mean?
Meaning a vampire is like impending doom upon the civilization. And a vampire...
Hold on, what does that mean?
It means when you see a vampire, like, oh, we're all gonna die.
And if you see a f***ing werewolf, that's not your thought?
No. At least not me.
Tell me, Legacy. When you see a big, shirtless, hairy man, what's your first thought?
Could be friendly.
We know who lives and dies in a horror movie.
When vampires are more of a threat, so they're gonna get killed first. They are the target. The werewolves are not inherently more feared by the people, so that they're not gonna go after them as an immediate threat. The werewolves are not an immediate threat to people.
I can actually easily counterpoint that. So, without the knowledge that they are a werewolf and or a vampire, because the knowledge alone will get them witch hunted. That literally happened in historical. Even though vampires and werewolves don't exist, people back in the day didn't have the internet and could look up that these mythical creatures don't exist, so they just believe they f***ing did. So, if there's a werewolf and a vampire in a city, if they don't have the knowledge, vampires immediately have that benefit. Because a vampire just has to not show their teeth, and they're just a pale human. If a werewolf has transformed, you can't pretend you're not a werewolf. Yeah. If you see a f***ing werewolf, you don't go, is that a werewolf? This isn't D&D, you can't just go, they all fail perception checks? Oh, that's just a hairy man. No. that guy's getting burnt to the stake or killing
There's
a
lot
town
of
full
obvious
people.
things to point out a vampire. Cold skin, dead to the touch.
Well, yeah, but you gotta, like, start touching a dude. I don't
You
know if you know about
can
humans.
bump into somebody, and then they're like, whoa, dude, I just got hit by a brick wall. Oh, I got you. Watch this.
Well,
Take the twig stick man that he is. If he was a vampire, he's going to be a stone wall because of how strong he is. So if you bump into him, he's like, wait a minute, this tiny little scrawny guy just shrugged me into this wall on accident walking into me. That's not suspicious. Werewolves can control their strength. Vampires...
Classically, vampires burst into flames in the sun. So this theoretical thing is probably
only going to happen at night.
So it's going to be one guy walking in the middle of the night. So either A, he's going to be like, oh, that's weird, but who the f*** is going to believe me? Because he's in the middle of the night, he's like, he had cold skin, and I have no other proof of anything. We should hunt him. That's not
Not that they're going to hunt him, but werewolves can still blend in just as well.
Even if it was a threat to telling everyone, you think a vampire in the middle of the night alone with one dude in the street's not just going to
Whoever said he was alone is just giving an example of just how he would get trapped.
and I'm explaining why that example doesn't work. Because if you bump into a vampire, you're either going to die or there's no chance anyone's going to believe you. Like, he had cold skin, he's a monster. It's like, there's plenty of cold people out there. What do you mean?
The vampire would have two options in that specific instance I just gave.
No,
watch this. So, if the guy realized, like, that doesn't make any sense, something's afoot, and then the vampire kills him, you either literally kill the man, and then the vampire doesn't drink his blood. Not gonna happen. Most chances. If he kills the motherfucker, he's gonna drink his blood. Second, if he actually drinks his blood, he's either turning the guy into a vampire, or now that there was evidence that a vampire killed that man, thus revealing the fact to the town that the vampire is amidst them.
Missing. What do you mean? Are you meaning like the man's not killed?
No. If they would have to kill the man when a vampire gets caught.
Serial killers existed back in the day, right?
Yes.
So people just went missing all the time and they had no idea what happened to them. Yeah.
But the vampire would have to be smart and literally take him away before he killed him. But if he killed him right on the spot...
No. You don't get that point. You don't get to sit there and go, well, actually, the werewolves are maintaining their mind and they're thoughtful and they're intelligent like people, but the vampires are brutes just sucking people dry and leaving them in the streets. No, you.
I'm not saying that.
If we're playing on the same playing field that they have the same level of intelligence, you go yourself. He's either turning that thing into a white, which is now his servant, draining him dry, and leaving the body disappears. It's gone now, or nothing. That's it. Or he sucks his blood a bit, and then maybe just like the guy, no one believes him. He's like, "There's holes in my neck." It's like, yeah, and heroin's around. What do you want? What?
Heroin is not around.
Doesn't mean anything. Heroin's not around back in the fort. I don't know how. Actually.
Yeah.
I don't know how long heroin's around. You want me to look it up? I'll find out.
Heroin is not a factor.
Welcome to the show where
in
we
the
find
neck.
out when heroin
You're not putting heroin in the neck. I thought you put heroin in the arm.
Yeah,
right here.
Yeah, you do.
Okay, then the neck is up here.
If you look up heroin, help is available. Comes up with a number. When did heroin come out? Hold on. When did heroin?
When was it released?
1953. What?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he's like, yeah. You know what? Yeah, 1953. That's when heroin came out. Actually, I know of the exact date.
No, I'm saying there's not a factor in saying, oh, it wouldn't be believed because you have holes in your neck. It wouldn't be believed because people wouldn't believe in the vampires that they exist.
Yeah, just because you have 2 holes in you doesn't mean there's a vampire. Anyone can stab themselves 2 times. There was crazy people back then.
I mean, this is true.
What was your point for this? I don't remember. I've just been refuting things and owning this debate.
You have not.
I have, though.
Mm-mm.
I've been teabagging you for 37 minutes like it's a Halo lobby, bro.
Werewolves can blend in better.
No, they can't.
How not? How so?
Because vampires look like people, and werewolves
vampires
don't look like people.
They can transform into their human form.
What do you mean transform? They're human form by default.
They're human, and they transform into werewolves.
Oh, you're talking about the werewolves. Yeah.
Yes, but vampires
are just human form constantly.
They can't. You won't see them in the day, and if you only see a motherfucker at night, he's pale as.
But here, let me pull this on you right now. You did keep bringing up modern day because you really wanted modern day to talk about why are these guys fighting. I'm bringing up the modern day.
Yeah.
How many night people do you think exist? How many people prefer to be up all night instead of during the day like normal people?
A ton.
A ton. So you can't look at me and go, well, of course vampires wouldn't fit in. They can't walk around in the daylight. So do half the anime community.
But if nobody's walking around, nobody walks around at night like that unless you're in some crazy backwash town.
You don't walk around at night, so you don't see all the people walking around at night.
So you're trying to say there's vampires out there right now?
I've done it! There's a surprising amount of people skulking around at night. You're like, are they gonna rob someone, kill someone, commit other heinous crimes? Who knows?
But my point is saying vampires are cold. Werewolves are naturally hotter. So if you run into a it's like, damn, that motherfucker hot as hell. What the hell? You got a fever or something?
You know what? I will concede. In a blind society, werewolves fit in so much better.
If you see a pale motherfucker like, thou art white. If I see a ghost, we have people that are alive and pale, and we have people that are dead and pale.
How do you tell the difference?
Have you seen a dead person at a funeral that's white as That's pale.
Why are we at a funeral now?
I'm giving you an example.
How
That's
are werewolves at a funeral? What's your point here?
What a pale dead person actually looks like. Werewolves are naturally more hot to the touch. Vampires are cold. That's how you tell. People are an exception because they love the hot heat. I don't know what it is. They're probably werewolves or something. Anyway, if you run
in... keep that. You whispered that into the mic. Welcome to the Aiden Ross stream, everybody.
Right? If you see a motherfucker with pants and a hoodie out in Texas... And
why are we in Texas now?
I'm giving you examples. Just listen. Follow along with me.
Yo, no, actually, no, you're right. In the Mediterranean, if a werewolf is there and a vampire is, yeah, you can probably tell the difference.
If they're just chilling in that heat, unfazed, wearing all that, and then they're hot to the touch and they're not sweating, werewolf, easy. That's how you can tell. If you're in the coldest parts of the planet, and you find it, and you
work out in all the hot air, there's not going to be a werewolf or a vampire, because the vampire can't be out in the heat in the daylight, and the werewolves are going to have a heat stroke.
They're not going to have a heat stroke.
You know who's going to survive in the cold? Both of them. Because the vampire doesn't need to maintain body heat, and the werewolf has a ton of fur. That's why your temperature thing doesn't work.
It does work. What?
They both are fine in temperates. The guy over there's wearing a hoodie and shorts in 100-degree weather. He must be some kind of mythical creature. Wait a minute. Let me ask you, what kind of people do you think just randomly touch each other?
Not randomly. Not you're trying to go touch people randomly, but like if you bump into somebody.
You know, without doxing myself, I'll talk about my childhood a little bit. Back when I grew up, we didn't just like walk up to people and start touching them, right? We kind of respect personal boundaries. I know that's something you don't understand, you know, with your Chris Chan hands kind of thing going on. You know, like, I'm gonna sniff you a little bit. But like, you know, we don't just do that. And I can assure you, vampires and werewolves probably just don't start touching people either. Because, like, that would give... If you started randomly touching a person, that'd probably give away your identity, like, immediately.
Of course I don't randomly just start touching someone. I'm saying, if you were to accidentally touch someone, accidentally, you're walking through the streets and you touch them. And
your first thought is probably on a vampire, they were kind of cold, that's weird, whatever.
And if
your thought isn't, that guy's a monster.
No, that's not, of course it's not going to be your first thought, but then if you have any brain and something seems off, vampires and werewolves are going to be off-putting no matter how well they can hide in society, unless you're just a klutz on TV and that they portray. But that's what I'm saying. This is how you find out. I'm giving you the examples on both creatures. If you were to accidentally bump into them and you felt them, vampires are going to be cold motherfuckers. Then you start looking at their...
If the vampire bumps into enough people where that eventually does come up, the argument then becomes mental deficiency.
Mirrors. You can't... If you're a vampire, you can't see yourself in the mirror.
Wow, we could have saved 20 minutes if you started with that than this body heat bullshit.
Easy. You look into any mirror and a vampire is caught.
Stay away from mirrors. What do you think they're gonna? Also, they're not.
Yeah, so you think a vampire's?
This goes back to my point. They're not gonna be out during the day.
Even if you're at night, you can't see them in the mirrors. They're gonna be outed like R. Kelly. Easy.
I can't believe I'm about to bring this point up to you, but you know how mirrors work?
Yes.
Explain to the beautiful audience how a mirror works.
You see your reflection when you look into it.
But why? Why can you see a reflection?
The science behind the material used for the mirror. And reflective lighting.
The science behind the material was the incorrect answer. The light refraction was the correct answer. You saved yourself. Everyone give a round of applause to Legacy Prime, ladies and gentlemen.
Yay!
It's light refraction. You know that requires light.
You can still see mirrors at night. The moon is reflecting the light of the sun.
I forgot when I'm walking around at 12 at night and looking at the 5 other psychopaths doing drugs and walking down the street. I forget that I always pass by the mirror store.
The reflection still works on windows too. You can't see.
Yeah, 1 or 2 people in the middle of the night being like, wait a minute, that's I can't see it. Is that a vampire? What is going on here? That doesn't mean anything.
How does it not mean something? All it takes is for one motherfucker to have one idea
and show up to the D&D group and goes, boys, I just saw a leprechaun. Do you think any of us is gonna believe you? No! You need proof. How are you gonna get proof?
I track that motherfucker down for the rest of my life until I'm proven right.
Then you die. He kills you because he finds out you're on his tail.
He wouldn't find out.
That's not the conversation we're having. Your mortality being forfeit is nothing compared to this conversation. You're not living.
I am immortal. Don't forget.
You're not the one discovering these mythical creatures in this debate. It's the average Joe.
But that's my whole point. The average Joe is not that stupid.
The average Joe's gonna touch.
Okay. Let me take that back. The average Joe in this day and age doesn't have common sense, but they're still not that stupid.
Define not that stupid.
When something feels off, you're gonna know. Unless you're coked up on some kind of drugs and your senses are dulled, you're gonna know if something is off if you bump into a motherfucker.
Doesn't immediately escalate at all. There's a difference between this is an unearthly aspect of a creature right in front of me, and
exactly
1 cup in my room is moved. It feels slightly off in here. There's a very vast difference between something's off and something's terribly wrong. There's a gap. It's not. Oh, I touched.
Werewolves are gonna blend in better.
No, they won't.
Yes,
you haven't
they
given
will.
me a single point why they do.
I'm giving you all the points why vampires wouldn't be able to more so than the werewolves.
No.
Yes.
You haven't.
Mirrors. The motherfuckers never come out at light. If you're in a town, right? Say you have a close-knit town, which is where they usually show vampires starting off at.
Okay.
And then they raise the whole motherfucking town.
We're going to talk about 1700s villages. Okay, sure. I know you wanted to bring up modern times. Let's talk about 1700 villages.
I'll go
do you want to do modern or do you want to do medieval?
I'll do both.
No!
Watch this.
Stop changing goalposts! You're changing more goalposts than the I don't know anything about soccer. I can't make a joke.
Got his ass.
You win. Soccer's an inferior sport.
Don't say it. Don't come after him, World. He don't know.
Sorry. Football is an inferior sport.
1700s. You gonna know that a vampire is there easy. It's too obvious, especially in those olden times, because the communities were more tight knit. You would know if a motherfucker was off. You had to survive. Survival was more tough. Your senses are increased.
The exact same thing happens with werewolves.
How? Werewolves are coming in and killing people.
It'd be quicker. They would be killing people.
What?
They need to eat.
Werewolves don't eat people.
Yes, they do.
They kill other creatures.
Do you know what a wolf eats?
Yes.
Meat.
Yes. Animals.
Do you know what a creature the size of a werewolf would need to sustain? A lot of meat.
And they're not eating people.
Even if they weren't eating people, they'd have to eat a bunch of deer or cows or big animals that would be found by the townfolk, and people would start talking about mysteriously dead animals.
Yes, mysteriously dead animals, but who are they going to pinpoint?
They'll figure it out eventually, just like with the vampire.
Vampires are going to be outed more easily.
How?
If a motherfucker doesn't show himself during an entire part of the day and only shows himself at night, that's a dead giveaway. Dead giveaway.
So are we assuming that werewolves and vampires are just roaming nomads in this scenario then?
Because in that instance, but even if they weren't random nomads, if they were a part of of a town or culture.
Listen, if Batman can go years without anyone figuring out who he is, even though he's just buying billions of dollars of bat gear, I feel like it's not that far stretched.
He buys materials and then he has one person
people have been
building.
going missing for years, but, you know, it probably has nothing to do with that guy on the hill in the big medieval castle, you know? The suspension of disbelief has to exist somewhere, and it's the exact same as werewolves in that regard.
But it's the same as vampires.
We find half-eaten cows lying around and but
you ain't gonna find half-eaten.
That has nothing to do with the people living in the woods. I mean, we've already dismantled the ability that werewolves can fit into society just better.
How?
They don't.
Wait, you didn't dismantle anything. You haven't countered anything I've said.
Also, if you really want to double down on the whole beastly nature, vampires, by literal definition, fits in better with people. Because they're charismatic.
They're not guaranteed to be more charismatic. They're more cunning because they've been alive longer.
Exactly, so they know how to manipulate and use people.
Oh, I guess that's one more thing. Werewolves and vampires increase lifespans. Vampires are going to live a lot longer than werewolves. I forgot.
Away from,
that's just an extra statistic for the statistic part. Their lifespan.
We can go to lifespans in a bit. I'm just saying, like, vampires are a lot more likable, like, in the setting of them existing. They know how to talk people up. They know how to be charismatic. They know how to be charming. Whereas werewolves are just f***ing literal beasts. So I guess if you have a bunch of, like, sub-Tumblr kids, then yeah, I guess werewolves are like, oh yeah, pounce me, daddy. But that goes back to the furry thing. And, you know, I know how much you wanted to talk about furries, but we're not doing that today.
Definitely did not. Don't listen to them.
That's alright. I've got the logs.
You ain't got no logs.
I'll save them for when we cancel.
You ain't got no receipts.
I got the receipts, oh boy. Werewolves don't got shit on them.
Yes, they do.
Well, what are they going to believe? The charming, handsome individual that's, like, super nice to everyone, or the crazy person that said, that man's not right? Whereas if anyone suspects anything of the werewolf, they're going to think, like, the feral woodsman that's just, like, doesn't talk to anyone, they're going to be like, oh, he's normal. No.
Do you realize how many of those we have in this day and age?
How many werewolves? 0. 0.
No, feral woodsman.
You know how many charming people living in medieval castles we have this day? You started this with 1700s, asshole!
We don't have any charming people living in castles.
We don't have wolves in the woods.
The only people that are in question are being vampires right now are Leonardo DiCaprio. You should be an engineer for how good you are with pivots.
We're talking about the 1700s. When have you seen a man in a castle in modern day?
You just said that!
Do you want to talk about modern day or old-timey? Stop swapping.
We can talk about both.
Can't use them as aha got yous if you're pivoting to a different time period.
You were the one that brought up
that's like saying, joke's on you, there's no slaves in modern day. Yeah. Those were abolished a long time ago. Checkmate! What? No, actually, that's a brilliant point, because in modern day, vampires inherently fit in better than werewolves. You're trying to use old-timey, small-town 1700s villages. Hey, all these nerdy loners that spend their times at night doing makes vampires fit in better, and you go, no, 1700s, and then I go, okay, so the charming man in a castle in the 1700 is going to be more likable to the town than a grumpy woodsman in the man.
How do you know he's gonna be grumpy? You're trying to already roll the vampire and werewolf stats.
How many friends do you think a werewolf has?
A lot.
A lot of friends? Why?
Oh, so we're just talking about one werewolf when normally they're always in packs? That's what you said. That's what you're assuming.
You're talking about fitting in and being identified in town by townsfolk and being outed. If all your friends are also people that live out in the woods with you, that still looks weird.
That's just a different culture, a different group. It's just like if a religious cult came into town and started spreading the word of whatever religion they were trying to preach.
Yeah, and the vampires are just trying to exist and be nice to people.
No. They're trying to drink them.
He's trying to make them think he's nice to people. And that's what matters. It doesn't matter if he's, like, killing people and drinking them dry.
The ones that are always, like, trying to do this and trying to do that, while werewolves keep it real. They are real motherfuckers. Vampires?
Tell me.
Well, but go behind your back and just kill you.
Real motherfuckers. I'm very curious. What do you mean by
that? They're about their clan. They're about their group.
So they're avoiding townspeople because they're staying in their tight-knit group.
All the more reason they wouldn't get caught.
Which means they're more antisocial than a vampire would
be. Vampires are, in this day and age, in
this day and age, we're back to that!
Because that's what you're talking about.
Okay, let's do modern day and age. Yeah, so a man who stays up in the middle of the night is not out of place. A man that's entirely very highly charismatic and enjoyable to be around, especially with the modern internet.
How's a vampire going to guess somebody without leaving some evidence in the modern age? Yeah, how is a vampire going to
How does a werewolf exist in modern age without evidence?
They're not killing people!
There's satellites everywhere! Where the f*** there's going to be pictures of werewolves, dipshit!
Where?
Everywhere the werewolf
Those
goes!
Bigfoot sightings and all those crazy motherfuckers on CNN trying to, I found one, guys!
No.
It's a blur.
So they're never going into cities ever.
And not in their werewolf form. They're in humanoid form. They're not trying to get caught.
You're saying that in this scenario, there's going to be a werewolf who's never gone to town late at night ever.
A werewolf is going to go where he wants to in their humanoid form.
You're telling me a werewolf in any society that's not a dry county, is not going to be at least one of them partying in the middle of the night and then go, that's a full moon, bro.
Oh, so now we're going off to the full moon principle. You just added that in.
No, I'm saying, like, if
werewolves are not inherently bound by
Are we talking about classic werewolves or modern werewolves?
And I said if we're talking about just classic werewolves, the vampires will already win. We already we already squashed that.
You're telling me a drunk is not going to go, no, baby. Trust me. I can turn into a wolf. You want to see? I'll show you. I'll show you my
motherfucker, werewolves that stupid?
And why are you assuming?
You're assuming that vampires have the charisma of the gods, apparently. They're all Zeus.
There's probably some incels, too. I'm saying they fit in with society.
So do werewolves.
And you think a drunken werewolf...
They're all Amish. Got his ass.
You are adding a detail.
So are you.
No, I'm not. You want to use hypotheticals in situations. It's like, yeah, here you go. It's like,
you have to think of hypotheticals in situations.
Hold on. Werewolves are better if they're Amish.
No, that's where they would be.
Werewolves are going to exist peacefully and very easily with the God-fearing Amish.
They pretend to be Amish. Easy.
So, in the fringe case that werewolves are in an Amish community, they're better than vampires. I will concede that.
And you know another reason why vampires wouldn't last in this day and age, the modern age? Watch this.
Mark that, ladies and gentlemen.
No, watch this.
Correct that werewolves are better in vampires in the condition that they're Amish.
Amish. Watch this. I got you on the biggest reason vampires wouldn't stand a chance in this modern age. And which is why werewolves would be able to hide easier. Garlic. Got his ass.
No.
Garlic. The world runs on garlic.
There's
garlic.
There's plenty of people that don't like garlic. What are you talking about?
But it's in everything. And vampires hate garlic.
No, it's not.
Huh? You know how many high quality dishes? What are vampires known for? Being fancy, high status. Where they're going to eat? They eat fancy. They eat at night at the nice restaurants.
What nice restaurants open at night?
Any fancy restaurant?
Any of them? Post-COVID world, like every restaurant's open past 9. Shut the f*** up.
That night starts around like 6 and 5, especially in the winter times, or in other countries where they hardly have sunlight. You think it's crazy to think that a werewolf wouldn't get drunk and flash his form around for just try to get some strange, but you think a fucking modern day vampire, well, they have to be fancy. They have to go to a fancy restaurant and eat garlic food. That's the kind of prissy bitches that vampires are.
I'm sorry, audience. I didn't know he was going to bust out the racism. I thought this was going to be a civil debate between gentlemen, but I guess
this is a civil debate.
He's just going to start like racially profiling vampires now, I suppose. I do apologize. We are about equality on this channel as long as you aren't a werewolf. Anyway.
Racism at its finest. Yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, it's okay. You can be a werewolf. Just know you're inferior. Well, you got anything else, buddy? Or is that it?
I had cooked you. Garlic.
You did it, though.
Garlic is outing the vampires immediately. What is outing werewolves?
I already established that
they can hide in coves.
I already established in a modern environment they would be fine because all of the night-dwelling weebs that exist in the world.
That is not good enough.
How many night-dwelling weebs?
Look at us. We would stay up for hours.
I'm not a night-dwelling weeb. I'm asleep by 10 p.m. What the are you talking about?
You only recently. You were once a dweller of the night like the rest of us.
Yeah, and I didn't eat garlic at 3 in the morning.
But
like a psycho.
And vampires are gonna go around killing motherfuckers trying to drink their blood, and you said
actually no. That's a good point you just made there. If they're going around killing people, what do you think they're gonna go in the middle of the night to go to a fancy restaurant for, you idiot?
That's the middle of the night. I'm saying.
I need to keep up the status quo where no one watching me because it's the middle of the night. So I'm going to go to a fancy restaurant, eat garlic, and die, and that's why I'm inferior. But also, somehow, I'm going to magically be in a second place where I'm going to drink someone's blood to death.
They're so fast! They can do whatever they want!
They are not the Flash, you idiot.
But they can transform into bats.
If
they
they
get
lived
transformed into smoke.
No, listen. If they lived in the middle of the woods and they grew on a bunch of drugs and they like destroyed a bunch of people, yeah, the werewolves would be like Ezra Miller. But like, no, they're not the Flash.
They can hide so much easier. The werewolves don't even need to go in society, which is why they can still hide better.
Which is why.
Where do vampires need to be to survive?
That's more
near
suspicious,
people.
you idiot.
How?
Who do you think's the monster? The very charming individual walking around and being pretty cool to everyone, or the mountain people in the woods? My money's on the mountain people. If anything, I might think they're monster. I might think they're Hills of Ice people. I'm gonna be tied up and be like, squeal like a pig, boy, me boy. That's more threatening than, hey, you want a drink? Oh yeah, sure.
And then the next thing you know, you're dead.
If you're dead in both scenarios, doesn't matter.
Werewolves aren't going around killing people. They hide.
They're going to run out of big prey eventually, idiot.
They can literally just build their own civilization hidden in some third world area.
I thought we're talking about modern day.
This is modern day. We don't have third world area can hide.
No.
Look at Wakanda.
Wakanda's not real.
But the principle of being able to hide in plain sight in areas where there's not
99% of the Earth is mapped out. Actually, sorry, that's a wrong number. 60% is mapped out. The other 40 is ocean.
You're saying every last ounce of the surface of the planet.
If
not a okay, when I say civilization, I mean like a little town area, a little cove.
You don't get to pull the, oh no, they fit better in society, and now pivot to, well, if they have their own society away from everyone, that's better.
I'm saying they could do either because they don't need to go.
If you want to get vampires do that better.
Because they've been around for hundreds of years and have the kind of bands that just hide in their little holes.
We can go into the immortality thing if you like, because vampires not only live longer and can have a society better, but vampires are smart enough, they can make a human farm. They can make their own food. They can sustain. Just like your theoretical werewolves can hide away from everyone else and eat large animals, vampires can breed and eat people.
I won't deny that.
Yeah.
I won't deny that.
Okay.
But...
So give me a winning point.
In civilization, I'm just saying.
We're going back to civilization. I won.
How?
Because you immediately conceded.
No, I said outside of civilization, they both can do that same thing. What I'm saying is in civilization now, like I said before.
Are we going back to our civilization or their own individual civilizations?
Our civilization.
Okay, so you've lost that point. We're going back to this first one.
How did I lose that point?
You're pivoting away from you.
I'm not pivoting
to it, and now you're immediately away.
You just said the exact same thing that I said.
Our civilization or their own little civilization?
I said they can make their own. How?
I just explained how vampires are more efficient with their own civilization.
It's not about efficiency in civilization. It's about being able to hide in their own civilization. I said that they both can do their own hiding if they made their own little civilizations.
Explain how they're hiding then. If they're in their own little civilizations, how are they hiding?
They're doing it where there are not other societies and people. That's what they do.
So vampires hide just as good.
Outside of
we're talking about outside right now.
Yeah.
Hold on.
I said they do just as good.
Then they're even.
In hiding, yes. Outside of staying away from people.
So literally, that's pointless to bring up. If they're just as good, and the only defining factor is that the vampires are more efficient.
But that's why I said werewolves are better in civilization. I was just giving you another point.
No, you were trying to be like, this is why they're better at hiding, because they can just make their own little societies elsewhere. But that point didn't stick. You lost that, buddy. Vampires are better at hidden civilization. Let's go back to regular
No, they're not better at hidden. They're the same.
They can make farms a lot easier.
It's not about the farms. It's just about hiding.
Do you know anything about... Apparently, if this is magical enough where satellites will never see them, then that's irrelevant. If satellites can't just see them and they're magically hidden, they're just as hidden as the vampires. Except better, because vampires are never changing their form as much as werewolves are. You think the werewolves aren't going to use their forms to go hunting or anything? If a random satellite just passed overhead, they're going to be like, oh, those are people down there. What the are they doing? Oh, we can't see. Oh, wait, there's a bunch of pen people. That's kind of weird. We'll maybe investigate that. They go over a werewolf civilization. That's a large wolf. What the Let's send our scientists down there and go check that out. If they're just perfectly hidden, your point's mute.
You realize they could just use satellites to track anybody that's just disappearing.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying their own hidden civilization's a dumb point. You're dumb.
No.
Very.
No.
You're super dumb.
No.
Dumber than the average bear. Hee hee. Boo boo. I like werewolves. You got any good points, buddy?
I have had plenty about why werewolves are gonna blend better in society.
Because they're not cold. Yeah, I heard that part. And they're good at making their own societies outside of society. I heard that part.
They can also blend in with other societies that are less technical and advanced.
Yes, I guess if they come across one of the last tribal tribes in the world, they're gonna find wolf spirit people a lot more beneficial than vampire demons. You got me there. If you can find a native society somewhere, werewolves win. You hear that? Werewolves win with Amish and natives. You have any other points? Because it's not the mass majority, so... The discussion is werewolves versus vampires, and you have only picked minority clutch cases, so...
I have not.
That is all I'm hearing, buddy.
You were trying to say the people that stay up all night are going to get killed by the vampires.
If they're walking around, probably.
Motherfucker, that's the biggest point.
Your skin's cold. That's
when
not
you
right.
have somebody in this day and age, we all have our own cliques, our own social circles. If a motherfucker disappears, we're gonna know. So then, how would it be like, damn? There's no evidence at these crime scenes that these people are disappearing.
You're also assuming. So if a werewolf and a vampire are in the same scenario, though.
But werewolves are not killing people.
If they run out of big prey, yes, they will.
What do you mean they just run out of big prey?
You know there's a finite amount of animals in an area, right?
But werewolves, if
werewolves eat all the
werewolves can eat
other
regular
werewolves,
human food.
They need a lot of meat.
They don't just only eat meat.
You still
werewolves can transform.
You need a lot of calories if you're a large hulking wolf man, idiot.
Yes, and they can still just eat like so I'm a werewolf now?
Sorry, I didn't.
I'm a werewolf now?
I guess so. Jesus. But you know what werewolves don't have? Like 9 to 5 jobs usually. What are they? Bruce Wayne going out there like I'm gonna need 14 pounds of meat. I'm gonna need 40,000 carrots. I'm gonna need like where are they getting all this food, huh?
They just go out and eat.
Yeah, they're gonna buy a McDonald's Happy Meal and that's gonna sustain a werewolf. Good job. You sure understand how.
What are vampires doing? They have to take people, and that causes lost persons cases, which causes getting searched.
Yeah. And not having enough meat is going to drive you insane and cause you to go feral. And if you're a werewolf, you're going to start eating people.
No, you're not.
Yes, you are. There's a reason it's a debate against monsters.
There's a reason why vampires are always shown to be the villains and werewolves are the good guys.
You think werewolves are always the good guys?
That's what is always literally shown. So we
Name an example.
Huh?
Name an example.
Twilight.
That's wrong.
How?
Because both the Colons and the werewolves are only out there because 2 of their guys are in love with a white woman. They are not there for the goodness of their heart. They are there because of love.
Okay, that doesn't mean they're going around killing people. Not just one.
Because they don't want to get caught.
Collins don't kill people. That's a sect. That's a sect of vampires. That's a sect
if
of
you
vampires.
Want to use, okay,
not
so
the majority. We go to Italy. We go find some entire cult of vampires under that Pope's church.
Here's what I was exactly warning about in the beginning. We needed to stay generic because now you want to go into specific cases. We're gonna.
You weren't going
into
specific cases.
No, you said Twilight specifically.
After you asked me whether you asked me, oh,
no, vampires weren't the bad guys. They're also the good guys. You idiot.
In Twilight.
Yeah, you mentioned Twilight!
Because you asked me about the good and the bad ones. Like,
yeah.
Give me an instance.
You said
you get it. You said
all vampires are bad guys and all werewolves are good guys and all media.
I said most of the time.
And I said name an example and you said Twilight, where both are good guys.
One sect of the entire planet of vampires.
So the racism is because there's no evil werewolves. Except for the fact that they all tried to kill Bella until Jacob said, wait, stop, I love her. And then they're like, okay, she's fine then.
That's right, she was a vampire. At that point.
No, she wasn't.
Yes, she was. When they tried to kill her.
Beginning.
She was holding the vampire baby.
We're not having a Twilight discussion. I'm saying you're wrong. Give me a better example.
You can't just say I'm wrong and move on.
Then give me another example. If it's in all medium that all werewolves are always good guys, give me a second example.
Okay, let's see. What was that show called? I have to think of the name of the show. Damn.
You jumped very quickly to Twilight. What's the show? Come on.
I'm trying to think of the name because Twilight was just the easiest one to go off the top of my head.
Which is still wrong.
How is it wrong?
Because the vampires are good guys, you idiot.
That was one sect of the entire planet. We go to Italy.
Wait, no, shut the up. It's one sect of good vampires, one sect of bad, and one sect of werewolves. You're using a very small sample size to go, all werewolves are good.
What are the werewolves are doing bad things? In Twilight. Where? You didn't hear about it? You didn't see about it? There was no records?
Yeah, but not all the vampires are bad guys. That's the point I'm making.
I said most of them.
No, now you are.
I know. I said
Run back the footage.
We will.
Give me a second. You're stalling. Second example. Come on. How are werewolves always good guys?
Dance in the Vampire Bund.
What the is that?
Anime. Good one.
You know how many anime where the good guys are vampires and werewolves are bad guys?
None.
None. What about
go find it, please.
Helsing?
I don't know anything about Helsing, so you're going to culture me on that one. Yeah, culture me. Tell me about
Helsing. Literally, back in the days of old when Dracula was running rampant, maybe it's just Von Helsing, I don't know. Basically captured him and made him serve the family, and then you find out, basically long ago, he gave up his humanity to become a vampire, and because the god forsaken him, and he was going to slaughter every other monster so not another ungodly monster could exist on the world. So he just slaughters villains constantly. And the werewolf is a Nazi.
The what?
The werewolf is a Nazi.
The one? Is there only one?
One of the Nazis have a werewolf. He's a werewolf. He's a Nazi. And he does move faster than vampires, so we'll give you that point from that. Yep.
Are you serious?
Yep. Vampire Nazi, or sorry, werewolf Nazi. Look it up. Put it in the video. Put it on screen.
That's why I said again in most mediums. And medias.
No.
Yeah.
Most doesn't work when you have to remember an offshoot anime that's
It was not an offshoot anime. It was a great anime, first of all.
How popular is it? Has anyone else heard of that anime?
I think it was the 07 era.
See, here's the thing. When you have years, and I mean since the 1400s, of mediums talking about how monstrous both of these monsters are and how terrifying they are, to make the claim that in most media, werewolves are good guys is an insane prospect. Let alone the vampire thing, because most is probably still villain, yeah. Because they're evil monsters. They kill people.
And werewolves are closely enough related to dogs. Boom.
No. You want to shift the scales again? Sure, we can pivot.
How is that shifting the scales? That's just going off your point of why they're still mainly considered and shown as evil.
No, I'm saying your statement of all werewolves and most werewolves in medium are good is wrong.
How?
Most are evil.
Where?
All of it.
All of what?
All but the two things you mentioned. And even then, those werewolves weren't that good. Twilight, they literally almost killed her just because, she's there.
No, she was growing a vampire child.
Tell me, Jane, how's racism not evil? Good. For all our beautiful viewers at home, tell me how racism isn't evil. I'll listen.
I never said racism isn't evil. What?
They tried to kill her because she was a vampire. You did say that.
Yeah, vampire baby.
So, because of her race, they wanted to kill her. How was that good?
No. That she committed taboo.
And why is it a taboo? Because they're race mixing?
Yes.
Cut that from the... We're not putting any of that in. You can't just fall back on racism as to why...
I'm not falling back on racism. You're saying you're the one that brought up racism.
Yeah, because your one example about werewolves aren't evil is because the one time they were trying to kill someone because of their race.
It wasn't because of their race. It's because she committed taboo by trying to mix the blood of a human and a vampire for a child.
They tried to kill her because she was race mixing.
No, she wasn't trying to race mix. She was
successful! Thank you very much! She deserved it! To summarize up till now, we have they're better in combat because they're beastly, yet they're intelligent and humanly enough to not be beastly, but even though they're also not social, but they're more somehow fittable into society, but only if they're in an Amish.
We live in an antisocial world. I just as a modern example, and then easy. If they're not social, they keep themselves hidden in olden times because things were smaller.
And we're back to olden times.
You can do both. I'm giving you examples for both.
Do you want to do older or modern? Because you can't just pivot back and forth so frilly-nilly like that.
Why not? I'm not pivoting. I'm giving you examples of both.
Because you're not making a cohesive argument.
We're staying in the time. We're talking about eras.
No, I'm trying to make a cohesive argument that starts at point A and ends at point B. You're throwing darts at a dartboard. You time travel more than the doctor when you start to bring up your points. Your best points are the Amish, bro. Why is the Amish your victory card? Do you have anything else? Because... No.
You haven't just won.
Well, with every argument
we'll let the viewers decide off of everything we've talked about.
So you're conceding?
No.
Do you have another point? Because I've dismantled every.
I'm not trying to make you say werewolves are better. I'm just trying to get you to hear out that you cannot just discredit werewolves just because vampires had magical abilities, because that is how you had shown your argument from the get-go.
I have articulately described every point you've made and why vampires are superior from their own hidden societies to why they exist better in modern and past societies, how they're better in combat and versatility.
Our original debate was combat.
That was the first point, yes, because vampires have just...
But that was the only main conflict, and then we got in all the rest of them.
Yes, because the conversation is werewolves versus vampires in general. And other than the fact that werewolves are just naturally cooler, which is a point of opinion that I agree with, vampires are inherently better in every single way. And you have not provided one bit of evidence.
How have I not?
Why. You've also haven't given me a third example of how werewolves are mostly the good guys.
I have so many logs of shows and books that I have to go through and remember. I remember the best ones off the top of my head. I still have to go back and go through.
Two of them, like Twilight, my favorite movie.
Not true.
You started up like, well, let's look historically. Why were they always fighting? Well, why are they...
I was looking at...
It's because they're monsters, Jamie. They've always been inhuman monsters that kill people. And if you want to bring in the point of morality of, well, what if they don't kill people? Well, you could say the same thing about vampires. You're like, well, werewolves don't have to eat people. They can just eat regular meat. Well, yeah, in some lores, vampires can just, like, exist off of blood in general. They can go to a restaurant and get a rare steak. They can just drink that animal blood. There's some mediums where they do that. The point where you're shifting away from them being monstrous and more humanoid, well, that starts falling apart because once you go to the human aspects, vampires are incredibly charismatic and understand how humans function. They need the manipulation to understand, to get people, like, you know, like when you bring someone back to your place, they have to have the riz. They have to be able to use people. That's how they understand people. They're going to fit in a society better compared to a werewolf who literally has, even if they have a human side in their brain, is a beast at the end of the day. And like you said, they're pack animals. That's what wolves are. They exist in their own cliques, not in just society. If you take a werewolf out to a bar, he can raise up 3 girls and take them home. Take a werewolf to a bar, you'll be lucky if he doesn't get kicked out.
That was our separate points in the original point of the combat. The original debate was about the combat.
See how you're looping back to the combat after an hour and a half of trying to talk about side societies and the Amish?
No, because you were just I had to stand up for the werewolves. You're just trying to discredit them.
I'm trying to explain why... I'm not saying they're useless. I'm saying vampires are better. That's the debate. I'm not saying werewolves aren't, like, better than most other monstrous races, because they are. The point is, back to the original point, vampires and werewolves. If vampires are number 1, werewolves can still be number 2. That doesn't make them... That just means they lose. And that's the only point I've been making. They lose to vampires in every regard.
They don't.
Except the sunlight.
Werewolves that's a big regard.
Werewolves aren't doing much in the sunlight. Are they going through towns? And what are they doing in the day? Hunting animals?
They can transform. They are literally not inhibited by half of the day.
Yeah, and in modern times, you don't need half the day. You can use the night. There's plenty of people that use the night.
To literally be alive, you cannot... The vampires have to hide in the shadows of the literal half of the day.
I can sleep. You're going to look me in the eyes and tell me a vampire can't sleep for 8 to 12 hours a day when we know humans that sleep for 14.
I'm not saying that. I would never say that.
Exactly. You can sleep half the day. Vampires can easily do that. You think they'd care about the time ticking away?
And that's another way they get outed.
The only thing that really matters when it comes to fitting in society is how you can interact with people. Because either you don't interact with people or you do. If you don't, it's irrelevant. Because who's the gonna be like, oh, you're antisocial. You must be a vampire. No,
everybody.
But that's why the vampires have the riz, bro.
Not you're saying that vampires
they
are
either
guaranteed...
have the riz, or if they don't, they're just staying at home anyway. And that's most of society. I don't look at someone who's a hermit and go vampire. Most people don't, because that's insane. So they would fit in fine in a society full of people who don't talk to each other. Whereas if a werewolf went out in public, and like they could stay home and do the same exact thing, but that's even. They don't win in that regard. If you're like, well, they can go out into daylight and be social, they have worse social skills than vampires inherently.
That's not guaranteed.
It's almost always.
How?
If we're going off of base,
you're saying something for a creature that is mythological is fact. In terms
I'm going off of the first vampire. The original Dracula, the template for every vampire going forward, was incredibly charismatic. That's how he got his victims. He would lure them in with his riz, and he would suck them dry. That's literally it. There's been iterations and everything to be added throughout the ages, but that by the default core is what defines a vampire. An entirely charismatic, immortal being that sucks the life out of other beings. And that's how they live. They use charisma and intelligence and tact to hunt their prey, whereas werewolves just overwhelm with power. That has always been the case. You can have offshoots, you can have differences. But at that point, we're splitting hairs and being like, well, this vampire can do that. Well, no, this werewolf can do that. If we're talking about what just are the things and what they do by base definitions, they have that. So you can't keep going, well, they don't always have the riz. It's like, well, yeah, but also werewolves aren't always good in public. They aren't always like act like people. They're beasts, but you want to... Stereotypically, werewolves can't control their forms, so you're trying to implement that, but then you can't say what the base form of a vampire does? No.
But using a template for what all vampires do is not inherently saying that... How is using a template...
You are not going to talk about race mixing and then to go on a rant about stereotypes. We're not doing that. We are not doing that. I'm cutting it off right there.
How?
I'm telling you no. You have any other points? Because I was very articulate. I f***ed some words here and there, but I was very articulate with my points, and your response was, no, So, do you have any other points for the viewers at home to really, really just convince them that you're not full of...
They've heard my talk, so I'm not full of... They'll know it.
Any closing arguments whatsoever?
Just don't discredit the werewolf.
All right. Well,
give the werewolf its dues.
Well, then, my closing arguments. I think I've demonstrated very consistently tonight why vampires are better in every single regard than werewolves, but I can easily summarize it very quickly. They are much more socially adept and easily to fit into societies. They are a lot more intelligent and tact-based. They don't have the overwhelming strength, but in every single regard, they are able to sustain and exist within either their own social circles, within modern society, medieval societies, held their own in combat. Basically, there's not a single thing werewolves have over vampires other than werewolves are really cool, but that's also personal bias because wolves are cool. Well, anyways, Legacy, thank you for doing this stupid podcast with me. I hope you sleep well tonight. You know, it's not easy losing a debate, but, you know, sometimes you just gotta be the bigger man and just accept when you're wrong, you know?
Not at all.
Well, I guess you could just... Denial is also an option. Tune in next time to Denial versus Acceptance, the next debate. I'm Everborn, and I'm out. Peace.